That's the email that came today, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been in meetings all day, and
Yes.
yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
So actually, we have both a team level analysis and an individual level one. So if we are not confident about the team level one, that's why I have introduced the new one at the individual level. So at the individual level, we do not have any problem whatsoever from that sense. And the variance explained is stronger. So we could even reject entirely the idea of a team level analysis and use just the individual level. The point is that the main hypothesis is not actually verified. The hypothesis that there is a causal relation between cohesiveness and performance. Actually, at the individual level, it is the opposite. So it seems that the more cohesive the individual, the more the assessment of cohesion from the individual, and the less the performance, the individual contribution to team performance, because we have assessed the individual contribution to team performance based on peer evaluation of percentage of work done or self-assessed evaluation of work done. And in both ways, we do not have that relations that we expected. On the opposite, we see that culture is affecting cohesiveness. Anyhow, everything is inside the paper.
So can we maybe quickly go over the hypotheses and just see?
Yes. If you have the paper, do you have the paper?
Yeah, I have it yeah, I'm looking at the hypothesis right now. Yeah. So the first one says collectivism makes the team more cohesive, right? So basically at the team level.
Yes, a collective thing. So the hypothesis one is verified. So a collectivist or team-oriented individual culture has a positive effect on individual assessment of cohesiveness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
and that makes sense. Of
team level variables, right? So average team collectivism and average.
I am in section 4.2 at the individual level, not the 4.1.
Can you say that again?
I am in section 4.2.
In the paper?
In the paper.
What page is it?
It's page 12.
Because I'm looking at the one with hypothesis.
Yes, I skipped the team level section because it seems to be controversial. So maybe, yes, it's there. I have done the analysis at the team level, but maybe it's better to focus on the individual level.
So then what you're saying that is people who score high on collectivism also perceive the team to be more cohesive.
Yes, okay. And also, that score high on collectivism, but also on team orientation.
Mm-hmm.
So I prefer to work in team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so the variance explained is also significant because it's between 18 and 11%, depending if you choose collectivism or team-oriented. And if you use both, it is 20%.
Yeah, that's very good.
So a multiple correlation with both. And this makes sense. Hypothesis 2 is also verified. So individual team culture predicts performance. And you can see it is with a negative sign. So the more the team culture, and the less is this is with competencies. Sorry. So it's individual team culture and competencies. So it seems the more collectivist is the individual, and the less are the competencies. But the variance explained is very low.
Mm-hmm. And just because of the size, it turns out to be significant.
Yes. So this is page 13.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the same is with a preference to work in team. And again, it is in the opposite sense. So it seems that...
Ernesto, can I just clarify this one? So again, number 2.
Yes.
So people who score high on collectivism,
yes,
they are rated by the team as less technically competent.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And also the people that prefer to work in team, even if the variance explained is pretty low, 0.1.9, 0.8.
So people who are more collectivists basically
Yes,
are not liked
are considered less competent.
Less competent.
But wait a minute, this is for individual competencies here.
Right.
We use the readiness test, so it is not peer evaluation.
Okay. So yeah. So this one then it's a little more tricky because so do we have a reason to believe that people from individualist cultures would be more technically competent?
Well, you know, the origin, why this hypothesis is here, because my expectation was that people that are very individualistic can be more competent inside a class. So people that are very focused on studying on themselves. So maybe I was expecting that they were more competent.
What can also be the case is people in the United States, but also maybe in some European countries, are more individualist, just because these cultures are more individualistic. But at the same time, people in these countries may be more fluent in the language because English is either native language or, like in Europe, it seems like everybody speaks English. So it could also be because these richer countries are not only more individualist, but also have more advanced and accessible technology. And so as a result, let's call them Americans, but I guess it would equally apply to most European nations. So they may be, just because they're more fluent in English and have grown up with computers, they do a little bit better on the readiness test.
Yes,
people from
that was maybe an additional reason why I was expecting that individualists were more competent, because I was expecting that the Anglo-Saxon world, that is so important in its culture, so large, was going to be more competent. On the opposite, it is not that strong. It is just a very low variance explains. So yes, it is going in the direction that we expect, but not all that strong. So it seems that individualistic people are more competent.
Okay.
Okay, because the variable is that is a collectivist or team-oriented culture. So the more they are collectivist, and the more of the competencies are going down. So this is as we expect. So for 1 and 2, we are according to our original idea. On the opposite, with hypothesis 3, that is the main one, this is actually not verified, because actually there is not this link between cohesiveness and performance. So cohesiveness is not a predictor of performance. And here I have been trying also with some other variables. So there is the list on page 14. So it is, and there is no moderation effect. So when the dependent variable is individual performance and the predictor is individual assessment of cohesiveness,
and so one more question. So why did we skip the team level? Because it seems to me that most of the effects here should be at the team level. Shouldn't they be?
You think we should work at the team level, you mean?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that when we look at it,
because at the team level means that we have an average inside the team,
right. So,
and everyone was complaining that average maybe doesn't mean so much. So that's why I went to at the individual level. But we have a section.
Yeah, but even if we look at the individual level performance or satisfaction, or it seems to me that maybe we still should look at the team level and maybe use some sort of HLM, but look at the team level cohesion as the average for the team. Because if we look at the individual level cohesion, then we deal with those who perceive the team to be more cohesive are more, and I'm not sure how much relationship there would be. I mean, presumably individual perception about team cohesion represents the team level cohesion as well.
Yeah, that's why I started with a team level analysis with averages. But at the team level, even at the team level, I couldn't find a relation. Actually, at the individual level, there is a relation, but it is in the opposite direction. So it is point A in page 14.
So, and that's in the opposite, the more cohesive the team, the worse the work.
Yes.
But then again, that may not be
yes.
so wrong. So I have this book here somewhere right here. Yeah, so that's, the classic Katzenbach. So that's the wisdom of teams. And so one of the main points here is the groupthink.
Yes.
And
so yes, there is a relation, but in the opposite direction. So
right,
sorry,
that's
I did
exactly,
something.
Consistent with the groupthink theory. So the idea there is that when you have a team performing a very simple routine task, you want cohesion. Like if you have, let's say, I don't know, like a small team of soldiers or a small team of, I don't know, like factory workers. So, and it's a very simple routine task, then you want people to be cohesive so that they all go as one unit, no disagreement, they just get the work done, and basically that's it. But when the the task requires creativity, when the task requires certain, dissent of opinions so that you have more ideas on the table, then actually cohesiveness may be a bad thing, because then, somebody says, let's do it this way, everybody agrees, there is no discussion, no brainstorming, no alternative opinions, and you end up with a weaker solution. And so in our case, we can actually say and show that, so that, yes, on a task like ours, where you need the variety of opinions, where you need creativity, unconventional approach, cohesiveness may actually hinder team performance, and the final product may not be rated as high. So if that's the case, then it predicts that this book must be like from the 50s. I don't know when they wrote it. So
to be honest, I am not that convinced. That's why I was expecting a relation between cohesiveness and performance. Because on the opposite, if you think about, for example, a sport team, if a sport team is very cohesive, you would expect a better performance.
Right, but in sport, it's all about reflexes, right? So the sport, that's the thing. In sport, you don't have to improvise. You just get together and work as one unit. And so that's where, you're right. Sport will be a very good example where cohesiveness helps. But if you have to solve a complex problem, account for all those cultural differences and business differences and things, you want people who are thinking differently. And so, and that's where cohesiveness, in fact, I'm thinking, if we can show on the one hand that cohesiveness has a negative effect on the quality of the work, but then maybe look at, for example, does it have any effect on like average team member satisfaction? Or
I don't know how to explain this, but I think there is a very US ideological approach to this, because there is this idea that in a class like it is there in the US, if people are fighting to support their arguments, and so there is no cohesion, but challenging this is good because it shows leadership or things like that. But on the other hand, people here are answering to a survey. And if when they answer the survey at the end of the week and they say there is no cohesion in this team, I think it means that something is not going how it should. So I was expecting that the team is not actually working. So it may be true that if you have a conflict and people with ambition that want to show leadership and so on, this is going to improve creativity. But on the other side, people, when they answer the survey, say, so I understand this point, and it happened to me discussing with you and other colleagues that cohesion is seen in a negative way. But I was not convinced. But anyhow, the data says that I am wrong, because actually we have the opposite of what I was expecting. So maybe you are right that cohesion is.
But what I'm trying to say here is that first, when we look at cohesion, so we can look at different types of outcomes. And so if the outcome is the quality of the report, I personally would actually expect the effect to be negative. But then when we look at the outcome as, for example, satisfaction with the team, with the project, or satisfaction with, like, for example, number of conflicts people have in those data, then I would assume that cohesion would be actually positive. So on the human side, the effect will be positive. On the actual output side, the effect may be negative. And then on top of that, since you're right about the United States versus maybe other countries, maybe we can look at some sort of, like country effects and look at either average team individualism, and maybe then cohesion will be more negative in more individualistic teams. But then also maybe we look at the country effect. So we have some teams that are all American, some teams that are, have like 2, 3, or even 4 American students, and some have none.
But I didn't have nationalities on my database, the one I've used for the analysis, so I couldn't do that.
We should have those. I mean, we have it in the database, so it shouldn't be difficult to add, because that will be a very interesting story. First, it's consistent with, as I said, the Bible of teamwork.
Yes, because I didn't want to bother you asking additional data, so I tried to work on what I had actually.
Shouldn't be a problem. We should like, if we decide to go that way, we should have, the data shouldn't be a problem to get it. So if we're going to go by country, as nationality, maybe we should look at individualism as the moderator here. So,
and what else is here that is interesting? Let me recall. So yes, the hypothesis is not. So yes, it is in the opposite way as I was in respect was I was expecting, and what is also important, for example, that I have seen. Let me on page 17, for example. So I've been recollecting them now. So of course, average peer evaluation is a predictor of performance. And here, of course, it is very, very strong. The variance explained is more than 50%.
So average peer evaluations as the predictor of the quality of the report.
Yes, is a predictor of performance, of individual performance. Both when it's measured as peer assessed percentage of work done, this is page 17, and when it is self-assessed percentage of work done. So when it is peer assessed, it is more than 50%. When it is self-assessed, is 2.2%. But in both cases, of course, average individual peer evaluation is a predictor of individual performance.
Yeah, for that, if you look at the percentage of work done in peer evaluations, I think the big factor there is that it's largely the same measures. So presumably people who do more work get higher peer evaluations.
So sorry if I'm trying to recollect the results now, but they are well explained inside the paper. I couldn't go for them before this meeting. So the point is where we go from here. Basically, that's why I was in a way because with the database that I have, this is what could be done in my view. I don't know if some of you have additional ideas, because again, I have been working at the individual level and at the team level. I really don't know how we can interconnect these two sides, but
my only
I think
my only concern about the individual level is that there we can only talk about essentially perceptions. So people who say that their team is cohesive are people who, and then whatever the answer. Whereas when we do it at the team level, we can say, since we took the average perception of cohesion, so that would be more or less objective measure of team cohesion. And so in teams where people perceive themselves as one unit, we see this and whatever we see. And so in there we can look, as I said, it seems to me that a very interesting story would be to look at the different types of outcomes and look at first quality of the report itself, maybe even the creativity of the report dimension. But also we can look at other objective measures of performance, like, for example, quality of the formatting of the report, timeliness when it was submitted. So presumably more cohesive teams will submit it faster, and presumably they will maybe even write more, I don't know. But then human side also, they may be more satisfied with the team. They may identify closer with the teams who have won, like how much do you feel to be part of the team or something like that. But at the same time, we probably, and see fewer conflicts and things like that. So it would be, hurts one side, but helps other side.
Yes, because right now the idea was to test actually the model that is on page 23 at the end of the paper. I don't know if you remember the main frame that we had. Can you go to page 23? Yes. So this was the starting point, the idea that team culture is affecting team cohesiveness, but made sense to me, because if people have are team-oriented, there should be more cohesiveness.
Right.
And cohesiveness should produce a better performance, but moderated by team competencies. So this, from a theoretical point of view, made great sense to me. But the point is that the connection hypothesis free, well, actually, at the individual level, hypothesis free is verified, but it is going in the opposite direction. So team cohesiveness has a bad effect on performance, and there is no moderation. But hypothesis 1, 2, and 3, we could say that they are all verified, but the 3 is in the opposite direction. That's the point, with no moderation. I don't know if this is clear.
It's worthwhile to peddle the model that, like I find, if you ask me, for example, as the team performance measured by the final report, I would actually expect to see a negative effect. I mean, at least all the prior, research would say that it should be negative on this particular type of task. And
cohesiveness, you mean, should be negative.
Right. I mean, all the, that's what they call groupthink.
Yeah. So this is, yes, this support your feeling, actually, because it is negative, it is significant, but I don't know if there is any value in this. We say that culture is affecting cohesiveness, and cohesiveness is wrong for performance. This is the story that we have right now.
But that's exactly, that's exactly the point. So that more collectivist teams are more cohesive, but that is a problem because they are less creative and less.
Yes, and they produce less performance. So we have this story, but I don't know if this is of any value, actually.
Well, why not? I mean, especially, as I said, I think it will have a lot of value when you will also show that it has a positive effect on some other types of outcomes. Like, for example, so quality of the report, we know now it's a negative effect. But as I said, maybe average satisfaction with the project, maybe whatever else we may look at there, like, so we have satisfaction, we have team identification or commitment, maybe also, I don't know, satisfaction with the project as a whole. And so we may see that, or number of conflicts, as I said, number of misunderstandings, maybe also free riding. So we will probably see that more cohesive teams have less free riding. And so then we will say, yes, cohesion helps in some cases. For example, if it's a sports team, it probably would have helped. Even if it's a team that is a project team, it probably helps with some aspects of the project. Like, for example, people liking each other more, people having fewer conflicts, maybe submitting work faster. But when it comes to the actual outcome, it actually can hurt, hinder performance.
Yes,
and we can even call it, team cohesion paradox, the paper. And so the paradox is that while it helps with many things, in the end, it may actually hurt performance on a creative task.
Yes, but I would need additional data to do this. So I try to again to work on what I.
Yes.
what I had.
Well, yeah, and I have the new data, including the newest data that you didn't have from before. And another thing, by the way, that we might want to check, and I'm not sure what semester you looked at, but it also may be.
It is 2016, the first semester.
So you're already looking at just one semester.
Yes, just one semester.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So that it was more homogeneous and so on.
Would you be able to give me another week or so? So we have the individual level data all cleaned up and ready for sharing now. I've been working with this guy from Ukraine helping me with the data, but the team level will take a few more days. And so if you give me another week, we will have the data. I can send you the team level, individual level data right now. I'm not sure if you'll need it. Well, you'll need it so you can calculate the team level averages. But
yes. But maybe I think we should work on the individual level. I don't know, because everyone seems to be skeptical about the average team every time that we use it. Also with the pedigree study, I did an effort to calculate the average, but then, you know, when you have the average, the variance explains is very low, and many people question what the meaning of the average. So,
well, that's where I probably commented about ICC basically inter-rater reliability, so intra-class correlation. So that's where we can look at whether or not there is enough agreement within the teams, and we definitely need to check for that. And so if we see a lot of variance, what is it, between and little variance.
So this is interclass. Yes, I understand. Yes.
Yeah, that can tell us whether or not there is a reason to, calculate the averages. I'm not sure though if in this case it will work very well, because we have many teams. They're measured on the same scale, so it will be impossible.
Yes, I understand the point. Yes.
What I mean is, with this sort of data, it will be impossible to have large between team variance, because the outcome variable is measured on a 7-point scale or a 5-point scale. Like, we'll have to take a look. It may be not very
in the final report.
But we still can measure some sort of inter-rater agreement, and as long as people within the team have more or less an agreement on how cohesive the team is, we have the reason to claim that the team level average is a mean. And one of the reasons I see when you work with the individual level, so since your team performance variable measured by the final report, it's an inherently team level outcome. So how would you measure it at an individual level? Would you then just generalize the team averages to the individual level?
You mean the individual performance?
Well, in your case,
can you repeat the question? Sorry,
the team performance is your dependent variable, right? Team performance is measured in the final report. And because final report can be measured only at the team level.
Yes.
Another problem with using individual level is because your outcome is team level, and you can't really make it individual level. You can.
Well, we make it individual because we make the percentage of work done by the individual. We have the percentage of work done by the individual. So we multiply the percentage of work done for the final mark. This is what I've been doing. Like for pedigree, the same technique. The only thing is that if you are taking the percentage that is peer assessed, so the average of what the people says about the percentage of work done by the individual, or the self-assessed. But there is no difference. They go in the same way.
That is even more challenging, because I mean, this is
what we did in the pedigree study.
In the pedigree study, I guess there is no other way around it. So I guess that's the only way we can go.
Because otherwise, yes, at the very beginning, I didn't use the percentage of work done, but it seems incoherent because it was a team level stuff with an individual. So this seems the only way to move from the team performance to the individual one. That was Anna's ideas that I try to apply here too.
So in the pedigree,
I am not, but yeah.
So in the pedigree study, the outcome variable is not the individual peer evaluations, but quality of the report multiplied by the individual percentage?
Yes. Yes.
Did we try
Yes.
individual peer evaluations in that study? I mean,
Well, no, I don't know if in all the simulation that we did, if we ever tried it, but actually, we were looking for performance, and performance was the final report. So pedigree was not really about final performance. So I don't remember if we tried, but our focus was on that one.
my worry is that, so what we do here essentially, we take a team level measure, which is quality of the report, and effectively we
Yes.
weight it by individual percentage.
Yes.
I'm not sure how good it is a measure of individual performance. I mean, it's interesting. It may be defensible, but I'm worried that there is so much going on there that I'm not surprised that the effects are relatively weak.
Yes, I agree, but this is the only option because actually X culture is a teamwork.
Right.
And because that's why at the very beginning I tried the other way, working just at the team level. I tried to work just at the team level because this was the point.
Yeah.
That as I have team performance, I should have the pedigree average.
Right.
But everyone seemed to be skeptical about this.
But
and so we
what
moved.
were the results? Because honestly, again, I'm sure we can, sell it the other, either way to the reviewers. I mean, there are reasons to explain why that one is good and this one is good. But knowing what exactly those data represent, I personally would be very comfortable with going with team averages. Because first of all, team averages, if you want to predict, performance of a work group, you'll still have to look at some sort of.
This was my original idea, but again, I rejected it because first of all, it was complicated to calculate it, but I did some work and tried, and we did some team average analysis, but then we decided to go on the other way.
Well, in any case, it may be worthwhile trying both ways and see,
Yes, the results were very weak. Variance explains because when you work with average, everything is getting more.
Yeah, kind of cancels out.
Lower.
But can I propose this then? Let's not make the final decision right now. Can you give another week, maybe, and I will have the data fully prepared, both individual and team level. And for the cohesion study, I will send you the database, and maybe we can add a little more variables and take one more exploratory look and see what's going on, and then decide which story we go with.
Yes.
What I hear now, and I wish you could talk, so I'm, too bad that there is no sound. But if you are finding that cohesion has a negative effect on the report quality, I think this is a good story. I think it's a publishable, important story, and that's consistent with prior research. We just tested it with a large group of teams. And so I think if that's the only thing we find, it's already interesting. And if on top of that, we can also show that maybe the effect is, as I said, positive for something and negative for something, it's even more interesting. And if we find some sort of explanation for why, so if it's really groupthink, maybe we can look at like number of conflicts as a moderator. So yes, cohesion leads to fewer conflicts, fewer discussions, and so we can say, well, there is less basically discussion and brainstorming, and as a result,
and
so
if Stu and Livio want to put their hands on the analysis too, I would be very reassured because actually till now it has been just me, so maybe something went wrong or something. So if other people are joining in the analysis with a new data, that would be great.
But as I said, even if we don't find anything new and just confirm what you already found, as I said, it's not really a discovery because this idea, this groupthink notion has been around for a long time. It even has a Wikipedia page. So all we do is just we confirm it empirically from a larger sample than anyone else used before. But at the same time, I also like it because it has clear implications. So the implications could be that if you have a creative task, maybe you want to kind of induce or foster some sort of dissent and argument, because if the team is too cohesive, they just go with the first idea proposed on the table, and so as a result, the solution may not be as good, and so they're afraid to criticize one another. And so I think that alone will be a good publishable paper. And and maybe at some point we will also look at some other things like individual level and moderators. But even if that's the only thing we find, I think it will be already enough for at least one of the papers. But please give me another week or so, maybe 2 weeks, just because even though it probably will be done sooner, but this first week will be the first week of the late track, and I know it will be very busy. So even if my Ukrainian guy is done with the data, I just may not get to it to send it to you. But at most 2 weeks, and we'll have the more data, and then we'll see, how the story changes once we look at the additional variables. But as I said, even if we don't find anything new, this counterintuitive finding that you already have, I think it's already important and good enough for a paper. And I'm sure we'll find more interesting things, maybe explanation of the mechanism, maybe some country effects or culture effects, moderation effects, maybe. That one path, culture, cohesion, performance, positive, negative. I think it's something.
Yes, I will wait for the new data. So.
Yeah, we will also do, like Sue suggested, intra-class correlation to make sure that there is within team agreement on how cohesive the team is. And as I said, we can also look at the very least conflicts and satisfaction, and maybe also how active the team is at different stages. So presumably they will be more active sooner or something like that. But in the end, it all doesn't matter, because I guess more conflict and discussion and argument may still be more beneficial. Even when we look at the report, so the report itself, we may find that some outcomes, like for example formatting quality, or maybe something that is more kind of routine dimension, maybe there we will see better effects. But when you look at the creativity and economic feasibility, that's where you may see negative effect. Same thing with plagiarism. I don't know. I'm not sure. There is a good reason to believe that one dimension will be different from another, but I will not be surprised if that's what we'll see. So.
Okay, maybe we wait for new data to test.
Yes, let's take it just a little bit more time and then take another quick look. And so, though I honestly, as I said, I really like what you found so far. So what you said, it was counterintuitive. As I said, it seems to correspond with all the prior literature.
Yeah. So.
and counterintuitive is good. As I said, we can call it, the team cohesion paradox. And specifically talk that everybody think that when the team is cohesive, acts as one unit, it's good. But turns out on some tasks, actually it may not be. And maybe it does help in some things.
So it supports previous literature, yes.
Yeah, and, kind of gives you good advice. If your team is a little too cohesive, maybe it's not good. Maybe you should have some systems in place that will encourage them to maybe sometimes disagree a little bit. So I don't know. So. All right. Okay.
So it's a pity we couldn't meet Sue and leave you in person during this, but maybe next time.
Yeah, and I see Sue made a lot of comments here. So, but it's more about the technical side. And she says cohesion doesn't mean conformity. I wonder if we can measure conformity in some way, and then see maybe cohesion does lead to conformity. So, how did we measure cohesion again?
Yes, Mivas, cohesion was actually according to your survey. There is you asked people to assess cohesion. So the question was team identification and commitment, team cohesion from 1 to 5.
Yeah. It's actually because it does in some way to measures also conformity to some extent. Because the questions there are about how much but that's a good way to measure it. So okay. Well, let's take another look at the data. And so here I sent you a link, so that's the recording of this meeting. So in case you want to share it with it seems like Sue was here, so the only person who missed it is Liviu. So we ever need it for the future. So I'm gonna